Ladies and gentlemen, for our keynote conversation, Investing in America, please welcome Chairman and CEO of Jp Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, in conversation with United States Senator for Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick.
Did you hear Corey? Who's been listening to that? Is that the most perfect on-stage voice you've ever heard? Who thinks that's a recording? That's a real... Corey, come on out here. Corey Barsky is the man that keeps introducing... Come on out, Corey. Thank you, Corey. Everybody keeps saying, is that a recording? No, that is not a recording. Thank you all for being here. And Jamie, thanks so much. Having you here really, I think, reinforces the Freedoms Forge mindset that I think we're trying to have at this conference and that you've been promoting so well from your position. So I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about it today in front of this audience. You know, we started the day by doing a CNBC hit together, and you were at the Philadelphia shipyard. So maybe you could share with the audience why you were there and how this fits into your broader strategy.
Sure. So welcome, everybody. Thrilled to be here. Senator, thrilled you're doing it. I'm thrilled you work so well with Senator Fetterman. And you're reigniting. I say the dream is being reignition, and so is the arsenal of democracy. So today we went to the Philadelphia Navy Yard where they used to build ships years ago. Actually, there were ships built there for the Revolutionary War. World War I helped us win World War II. It was closed down at one point, and now it's been kind of reopened. You have companies moving there. Hanwha from Korea is bringing in to build ships there now. They're bringing the technology we need. Some of the stuff we moved overseas, we didn't just move it overseas. We lost the ability to do it because we don't have the IP. And so when the IP's gotten much more advanced, so there we're funding a new submarine building spot. We're going to hire 500 people. But that doesn't include all the other people, the vendors that support that, another 100 companies or so. And then importantly, because we work closely with the unions too, that we're doing, as part of the American Dream, the jobs part. There's a school there that trains, and Hanwha and this school train people do welding. They get paid as apprenticeships. They could be young kids. They could be former criminals. But they come there. They get trained. They get paid then. They get medical while they're there. And they get a job making $80,000 a year after a certain amount of time. And that is the completely American dream for those folks. And we need 300,000 just for shipbuilding alone. We build 1% of our ships in the United States of America. And so it's a microcosm of what we can get done. And importantly, it's also a microcosm of government working with business. Government can't do it alone. Business cannot do it alone. The training can't be done. And that kind of training we need to do in every high school, every community college, and every town in America. We should be doing it anyway. We shouldn't be waiting for other reasons to do it.
Yeah, it's if you haven't seen the Hanwha facility at the Philadelphia shipyards, it's incredibly exciting, and these incredible jobs. But as you said, the biggest constraint we have in Pennsylvania in many of these areas is workforce. We'll come back to that. But you did something really unique, which is you announced in the Wall Street Journal op-ed and through a broader initiative, your Security and Resilience Investment Initiative. And just about the time you announced that, I had just finished the book about Freedom's Forge and what had happened in World War II. And the thing that was about it was the team effort of the industrialists, of business coming together with the government to essentially mobilize the entire economy to win World War II and the fight against tyranny. Tell us about that initiative and what inspired it. What made you think now was the time that you, as one of the biggest employers in the country and the biggest bank in the country, needed to lead?
Yeah, so every year I write about policy in my chairman's letter, and some people say, why do you do that? Because Jp Morgan, or most of us, cannot be much better than our country. And we should get involved in it, and I mean in the fight all the time, at a local level, at the federal level, and not act like it should be delegated to other people. And so instead of, I always ask people in my own company, okay, so you're king for a day, what would you do? So I asked myself that question.
You sort of are king. I mean,
yeah. I do have a board, unfortunately, but I asked myself, what would you do? And I said, okay, now we're going to do, what can Jp Morgan do? We're not unique. We're not the only ones. I saw Kelly here from Boeing. I mean, some of these great companies. And we actually did a really deep dive on what we already do in terms of financing, not prime contracts, but tons of contracts and middle market companies. And we said, we do $100 billion a year of financing. We're going to do 150. We actually analyzed 30 industries. So you're talking about shipbuilding, and we do real work around that in policy. You already heard about semiconductors, active pharmaceutical ingredients, rare earths. You know, what the hell did we do? Advanced manufacturing, drones, cyber, cables under the ocean are being cut now. And so we said, what are we going to do? And we just doubled down. Jay Harine may be here with me, or a bunch of people, the teams are here, where we said we're going to do a lot more at a very detailed level. We hired Todd Combs to do investing, kind of Mike Gallagher. And Mike, you've become a much better public speaker since you're out of Congress, by the way. But you know, we hired him to actually do investing, not that kind of Death Valley thing, but to get these companies over the hurdle. He's already made many investments, including some who actually were on the stage before, and that's what we're doing. We're doubling down, and then we also did the American Dream, which is the American Dream is fraying, and it's not fraying for the people in this room. You know, it's not just manufacturing. It's inner cities, you know, it's rural areas. It's a whole bunch of areas. And again, what can you do? And this is about education. This is about, we have branches in lower income neighborhoods. We have more mortgages, affordable housing, work skills. But the work skills is the big one. That is the biggest one, to get people living jobs, living wages, to get them into the workforce. That brings dignity, it brings growth, it brings home ownership. But you know, everyone knows that jobs reduce crime, they reduce recidivism, they reduce drug use, et cetera. So, and I think everyone should do it. And that's just, you know, our part, doing our share to help build a great country. One last thing, by the way, because it's like the foundational, you know, we just had the 250th anniversary. And the foundational part of this, you know, I always say the Constitution is a legal document. But what's really important is the values embedded in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, which does not mean happiness the way the Gen Z means. It means pursuit, purpose. I see some military guys here, where you could be a father or a mother or a caregiver or a doctor or a lawyer, but maybe not a lawyer. But that's family. That's purpose, that's country, that's freedom of speech, that's freedom of religion, that's work ethic. It's all these things that somehow we shed them, and we don't educate the kids anymore. And I look at some of these high school curriculums now. I mean, it's not on there. And so we have to get back to educating the kids, getting involved, and everyone. And part of the, you know, if you read our founding fathers, you had a civic responsibility. That was part of your responsibility. You know, it's a republic if you can keep it. And the if you can keep it part, we kind of dropped a little bit.
Yeah, that's, I think, a great sort of framing for the role that corporate leadership can play, the role that business leaders can play. But as you think about the shareholders, and you're thinking about using the bank's balance sheet and investing, how do you think about that? How do you think about where you want to, are you trying to solve a gap that doesn't exist? How do you think about return on that investment relative to the fact that you might be fulfilling a gap that's for some reasons not being filled by other capital?
Yeah. So there's some things we do. You know, I always read these articles about corporations and big companies, like everything's about profit. That's just never been true. You know, how you treat people and how you try to treat customers, and you know, you do a lot of things. You know, the client's going to like it. It's a bad example because it's hard to look at a bank this way. But you go to a restaurant, they take care of you. They want to make a fair profit, but they're not going to like get as much as they can out of that meal because you simply won't go back. And so a lot of things we do like that, getting involved in society. We get deeply involved in policy. The guy who runs it for us is here, Tim Berry, who some of you might actually know. But it's mostly commercial. And I had to push back my own people a lot. And you know, it's mostly commercial. It's a little riskier, you know, but so what? It's our country. If our country doesn't do well, you know, JP Morgan's not going to do that well anyway. So some is far riskier. This equity investment, of course, it's riskier. Some is regular way business. We're just going to do more of it. Some may be a little bit more lumpy. And there is philanthropy. So the philanthropy is the grants to the schools to educate people. It'll be home ownership grants. It'll be getting involved. You know, we're going to do our share in that Trump account. Like, it's things like that, which I put in the philanthropy category, but they can move society. They're worthwhile to do. And we measure philanthropy just like we measure anything else. How many people got a job? How many people got, not like just, oh yeah, we gave $5 million to something. So the whole, it's been a crusade inside the company. We've brought this whole effort now to UK, Germany, France, Italy, Poland, and Japan, Australia, South Korea, Philippines. And so people are loving doing it. And the American Dream has become a crusade too. We already did it. We're just going to do a lot more of it. And it's mostly commercial. And yeah, people always say to me all the time in business, well, if that doesn't work, you'll have egg in your face. Just my response is always the same. I don't care. If it's the right thing to do, do it and move on.
So with that kind of spirit, if you think about the policies, and think about the policies a little more broadly, the policies that will keep America safe and secure economically, from a national security perspective, even from a political stability perspective, what, from your perch, what do you see as the most important things that we could do in the Congress or do in Washington right now?
Yeah, so let me do the big picture in this one, because I should have mentioned this. When Ukraine got invaded, I wrote an op-ed. The world changed. Then you had the terrible terrorist activity in Israel, and then you had, obviously, this Iran war. It's a complex world. This is real politics shit. People somehow think that somehow you can, not have the best military and it will be okay. It will not. And so you have to make determinations about what is it you want, how do you get there, the best protection. And that American military, which you so well served in, so thank you, that created an umbrella that allowed the world to grow. That even helped our non-allies. And, without American leadership in this world would be a much tougher place if it fragments and things like that. So there are these very big policy issues, and foundational to that is America's economic strength. You talk to any of the military guys, they'll tell you that right from the start. So policies are small. The permitting policies, education policies. The bigger ones, and you guys are doing this already, the bigger ones and the tougher ones, I'm going to say, are, I'm a big supporter of NATO, military alliances. I think we have 40 military alliances with different countries. The tougher one is foreign economic strategy. Like, how do you keep America healthy? We have to have, we got to bring some of this stuff back. We also need a stronger Europe. They're sliding down. I'm not sure that's good for us. So we have to have these great relations with these other nations too. So, navigating that's a little bit hard, particularly when, we're removing some of these things that need to be moved for national security. And we get involved in this policy. In fact, we're going to be publishing policy, wrote a book, we wrote an article on industrial policy. What is industrial policy works, where it's not corporate America feeding at the trough of government, but it's corporate America earning a fair profit doing things that government needs to get done. And so we're going to have around industrial policy production. We didn't have the capability to double or triple production of the missiles we need if we went to war. What the hell were we thinking? So how do you do that? There are very effective ways to do that, which I won't go through here, but it's around policy. And it's also around commercial use. You have a lot of companies that can, this factory could be in commercial use and immediately convert to military use if you need it. And you have the workers to do it too. We've been to thousands of these smaller vendors. They're big. There's not capital missing, it's workers. They can't double production because they can't double the amount of workers they have there. And so there's a lot to do. But the wonderful thing, and at least my view, at least I feel it today, man, it's been reignited. Freedom Forge has been reignited. The arsenal of democracy has been reignited. Thank God. It's basically just in time.
Right here in Pennsylvania.
Right here in Pennsylvania.
There you go. All right.
And I should say, you talk about policy. I love the fact that Senator McCormick and Senator Fetterman are talking, because we all make fun of the the radical left and radical right and all these various things. I call them the wing nuts, which they always tell me not to say. But there is a core of people in Washington who are serious people. They're serious policy people. They want to get things done. They're working together. Democracy, by its nature, is compromise. Otherwise, it's not a democracy. And I think it sets a great tone when people do get together and try to figure these things out, work with government. I met with the mayor of Philadelphia today, and she's gung-ho. She's been in the job for, you probably know her.
Yeah.
I said I fell in love for a second time. She's a black mayor out of Philly. She wants jobs. She was at Navy Yard. And she said to me, we're going to kill bureaucracy. I know the government gets in your way. I'm going to kill it because I want those kids to have jobs, to have livelihoods. I'm saying, God bless her. Let's promote her to bigger jobs. And,
you mentioned the American dream a couple times. So I just want to step back. There's sort of two trends that I think are related that I'd like you to comment on and comment in the context of policy. So one trend, which is just math, is that the last 15 years have been probably the best 15 years in history for people with assets. They've been not so good for people who live on income because inflation's gone up, real wages haven't kept up. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you've been worse off. And if you have assets, whether you were a good investor or not, you got richer. Now, if you look at the numbers on that, it's something like you went 26% of the, if you took the 26% of the wealth in America 15 years ago with the top 1%, now it's 31%. At the same time, the economy...
That'll correct itself one day, just...
Yeah, well, I want to ask about that. That's at a time when the economy's tripled. So that's one trend. And that's likely to... We're going to hit a hockey stick. That's likely to accelerate because of AI and the wealth that's being created. By the way, I say this as a red-blooded capitalist who has been the beneficiary of this system, which I think is the greatest system in the world for bringing people out of poverty. But those are just the numbers. The second thing is that you see this rise of attacks on people that have been very successful, the war on billionaires. And so my question to you from a policy perspective and from someone who I think shares the vision that I have of the American dream available for every single person, the opportunity available, what should we do?
Yeah, this is a real problem, and I think the first thing you have to do is acknowledge it. Like, what is the real problem? And the problem, Jp Morgan didn't destroy inner city schools. So when I hear people act like it was the big companies that caused the problem, they did not cause the problem. They maybe weren't part of the solution. And that is an important distinction, because we all need to get involved locally, where you have plants, you have people that you actually go to the local schools and things like that. So I think there are two immediate real solutions. One is the work skill stuff, that every community college, and I don't know if you can do this as a policy matter, that every community college, every high school, every college should have local things where they're teaching kids, where people will be hired. You saw Sean say that they're only doing 800 kids out of one of these things because there's only 800 jobs. So when I was in Philly, they're doing 100 because they're going to be 100 jobs. They graduate, they get a job making $80,000 a year. They also get something very important. They get college credit for that training. And I go all over the country, and schools won't give college credit, but that tells the kid, hey, do this job. And if you want to go to college one day, that's their path too. We're not telling you what your future path is and stuff like that. So skills. There's the aviation high school in New York, 95% go. It's largely minority. Their parents make them go. They graduate, 95% graduate, making $80,000 a year. It's 17 maintaining small aircraft. And there's schools all over America like that actually work, and it's local, and maybe you can build something, some federal thing that is conducive to getting people to do that. Like, tell the schools, I care what their grades are and what their math skills are and stuff like that, but they should be measured on, do these kids get good jobs out of it? Because if I was a school principal and you said, that's one of the ways I'm going to measure you, or the only way I'm going to measure you, I would be asking all of you, what can I do to get them better jobs? And I'd be bringing in trainers, I'd be bringing in the companies, I'd be changing the curriculum to accomplish that one goal. That's one. The second is, and this is something that, Paul Ryan's been pushing, Democrats push, you know about the earned income tax credit. If you have a parent with two children making $14,000 a year, the government writes you a check for $6,000 at the end of the year. If you have no children, they write you a check for $600 a year. I would double the number. I'd get rid of the child requirement, so it's kind of think of a negative income tax. I'd make it monthly, so that person, kid or no kid, is now walking home with $26,000 a year. If there are two of them, it's $52,000 a year. You have to phase in other benefits that get lost because we have all these cliffs and all these benefit programs, and I think it would be a home run. It would cost $50 billion. I'd probably tax carried interest, by the way, to pay for that, just so you know, because it could be paid for. But it has these wonderful attributes. Jobs bring dignity. The first job usually leads to the second job. I've already mentioned less recidivism, less crime, less homelessness, less drug, less suicide. The money would go directly to them and their communities. If they have kids, they might get a tutor or buy more health insurance or whatever they need they probably spend in their home. They probably foster local restaurants and local grocery stores. And it has the virtue of bringing people into the workforce. It would grow the GDP. And I'm trying to get our policy experts over here to do the numbers on whether I'm actually right about that. That $50 billion could grow the GDP by $100 to $200 billion a year. And I think it would be a wonderful thing. And then obviously you need safety nets for the sick, the poor, the disabled. But these two things I think would go a long way to fixing part of what ill society and sharing the benefits.
What do you think about Senator Fetterman and I just did an event in Philadelphia last week where we had the Invest America accounts, the Trump accounts, which we did it in Philadelphia youth basketball, probably 250, 300 kids. The thing that I loved about that is, there's a famous Pennsylvanian named Andrew Carnegie who wrote The Gospel of Wealth. What that allows you to do, I know a lot of really successful people that have a lot of money. They're patriots, they want to give. And one of the things that's beautiful about that, it circumvents the government. It puts the money in the hands of the next generation. It allows for compounding over time. And it creates, I think, more of a baseline for ensuring that the American dream's in reach, but also that as our economy prospers, we all want the economy to be prosperous, that everybody gets to be the beneficiary, everybody that participates and wants to work for it.
I think it's wonderful. And I think it has a great purpose. And Mary Erdos, who runs our asset and wealth management, has been pushing it. We're going to double it for our own employees' kids and stuff like that. I think we should reform all these other investment accounts too. There's too many. There's too many usage. There's too many reporting requirements and things like that. But I do think those things work. We have seen study after study that people who save money continue to save. And almost every level, once they start, matter of fact, most of us probably learned by your parents taking you to a bank and you had a little checkbook and it was magic. You'd have $14 and all of a sudden you have $14.12. And you thought, my God, there's a God. Somehow they invented 12 cents over here. And so, yes, those lessons are critical. I would also add K to 12, every high school should teach basic financial education.
Yeah.
What's a checking account? What's a rainy day fund? All these.
Can I get you to comment on the school choice? In the Working Families Tax Cut Act, it was the $1,700. Every person can tax exempt 2 school choice programs.
Yes, I'd be totally in favor of that. Yes.
Yeah, those are the kind.
Fighting for those things.
I think we're gonna have to scale them, but those are.
I just always mention this is important. Sweden, which some of you may remember is a very socialist country. Sweden started this thing called the ISK savings account. You can put in almost all the money you want. You can take it out whenever you want. If it's in there, so you have $1 million in there, or 100,000, you're paying 1% a year, no capital gains. They made it easy to list. They've added 1,000 listed companies in Sweden since then. They started equity culture. They made it cheap to list. They got rid of all the crap that makes it expensive in the United States, why companies don't want to go public. I kind of agree with them. Litigation, frivolous shareholder meetings, reporting that no one reads, endless stuff. And they have more unicorns per person in the United States, more billionaires per person in the United States. They have a very strong safety net, which is 50% of GDP, but they've created a very healthy investment environment where people are investing the money. If you go to Europe, they really are lacking some of this. Except
the power of compounding is not. Yeah, I agree with you. In this audience up here, we have 600 C-level executives, 500 companies represented, 130 have booths. But the thing about it that I'm really proud of and I'm really welcome is that we have all the major defense primes are here. They all have big operations in Pennsylvania. We also have all sorts of next generation emergent technology firms here. You probably serve them all in some ways as their banker. How do you think about that? The role of the primes in defense versus this emergent technologies? Is it zero sum? How could we get the most out of both? How do you think about that?
I think Tom from BAE said it right, which is these are complex ecosystems of companies, a lot of suppliers sharing ideas, and as you know, a lot of our own budgeting process made it very hard to do multi-year budgeting for certain types of things. Made it very hard for the military to say, hey, I need these drones and now I need those drones, and I love seeing it. I've spoken to a lot of these companies. I visited Anduril at one point. Saw some of the things that they were building. It's all going to work together. The primes are all going to do more. You have the primes. If you go overseas, they're all going to do more. You got to help Europe a little bit because Europe has to do more. Like, it's not just how much they spend, but they got to spend it wisely. So they still have like 12 types of tanks. It ain't going to work. And they have too many types of various things. Too many types of fighter jets, et cetera. But they're going to work together. And I think you got to read Freedom's Forge. Like America, we didn't have anything in 1939. And even when Pearl Harbor happened, I mean, the machine hadn't been turned on. We've been doing some stuff to help Britain, who fought the Nazis by themselves for a year and a half. God bless Winston Churchill and the British people. And 40,000 Brits died in that year and a half. One country standing against, the Nazi power until, Pearl Harbor happened. And Winston Churchill says, that was the best sleep I've ever had, the night of December 7th, knowing I'm finally going to get real help in this war against this scourge. But Freedom's Forge, that started it. Like, we did not build cars, any car in America, I think from like part of 1942 to 1945. But we built 100,000 bombers and fighter aircraft, 144 aircraft carriers. And a lot of this military equipment and tanks and stuff was also given to all of the allies to help them. It wasn't just to help the American military. So we just need to do a little bit of that more, and we need to, as people point out, quickly. Speed is of the essence, and the world is so complex, and technology change is so complex. We have to allow our military and our government to move very quick.
No,
It can't be 20-year procurement contracts for everything.
And I'll try to squeeze in two questions here. When we think about the pace of change, the underlying driver of a lot of what you see up there and what's happening on the battlefield is AI. And here at home, we see lots of controversy around AI. Many of us, myself included, who see enormous opportunity, also potential disruption. But there's a growing level of animus and pushback against data centers and AI, which of course is less the case in China. AI and data centers have 80% popularity in China, and they have 20% popularity in America. I don't think that's an accident, by the way. I think the Chinese are trying to help make that case against it in America. How do you think about that, particularly within the context of security and resilience?
Yeah, so AI, I mean, you're totally correct. The world is just faster, and AI is just being deployed to physics and the physical world. You know, it still was until even now, these large language models were, you know, largely letters, pictures, and they even treated numbers like a letter. It wasn't actually a number calculation, something like that. So, you know, absolutely. But all technologies change mankind. It's why we're living here. Agriculture, you know, internet, you know, steam engine, electricity, and it's always been scary, and it's always been misused. You know, airplanes were misused, and drugs were misused, and this is going to cure cancers, folks. This is going to stop deaths on the highways. It's going to stop deaths in hospitals because people are given the wrong thing to do. And yes, we have to protect it against, and that's where you guys have to work on some of the bad effects. So we use it to serve our client. That's what we're going to do. The two negatives, which I don't want to bore people with mythos, that's a real issue, which I know our government is on top of at this point. It's not to stop, you know, small banks from gaining stuff. It's really just to make sure when we roll out this stuff that we know is being controlled, because you're giving ballistic missiles to individuals with mythos, basically. And then there's the job thing. And now, look, the data centers are going to be built. They're just going to be built where people want them. You're just not going to have to be able to build in certain places. The jobs thing, to me, we don't really know. And I think people should stop being breathless over it. You know, we've created a lot of jobs in our company. And yeah, there are areas where it's reduced jobs a little bit. And, you know, technology always creates new jobs. The question is going to be if it happens too fast. Somehow, you know, people are adopting it too fast and jobs are being lost, middle-class jobs, before they could be retrained and replaced. That's where what we're talking about work skills is the exact same thing we should be doing anyway. That is how to fix it. The people know, and Jp Morgan, we're going to redeploy our own people, reskill them, retrain them. We may retrain them to take a job with you. It doesn't necessarily have to be just take care of your people. And so I think there are fixes for that. I think we're kind of scaring the whole world much more rapidly than we should about it. And the other things about AI, because we've seen this already inside our company, you know, we all have to be more rational how we use some of this stuff, and not rational, economic. But it's a little bit, you know, I've been sitting there with the choice. Here's the choice. Do you save money over here because you can do less, or do you simply do what you want to do faster? Well, I kind of am the mindset, do what I want to do faster, give you better stuff quicker. So the headcount won't go down because I want to make you happier, not less happy. So people should take a deep breath, but the planning should be around jobs. I think that planning will protect us against too rapid jobs loss from AI, if in fact it ever happens.
A lot of problems. Yeah. Let me end on the let's look out 10 years. Your hopes and expectations for America. 10 years from now, Jamie Dimon he's the chairman emeritus. His name is etched into granite on the front of the new Jp Morgan headquarters, and McCormick's teaching history at Bloomsburg High School. What's the world look like? And how do you wish it will look like, and what do you think it'll look like?
This country is an unbelievable place. It'll still be the most prosperous nation on the planet. We'll fix some of these problems. Hopefully we'll fix some of these societal problems. And Secretary of Treasury Dimon will be happy to report to we'll be happy to report to President McCormick.
You turned that right around. All right. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody. Give Jamie Dimon a big hand.